Autumn Nations Cup is pretty much upon us. There's a game on Friday. It's Ireland taking on Wales over there in Ireland. I'll go over the teams, the recent results between these two teams, and the predictions. You guys can let me know your thoughts on how you think this one might go. The sun is setting, so we'll have to try and make this quick. It's been a busy bloody day at work. The All Blacks team's out as well. I want to do a video about that, but I'll probably do that tomorrow because first things first. Wales against Ireland. I'll be honest here, man. Wales could use a win more than Ireland. I know Ireland didn't exactly set the world alight in that final game in the Six Nations, but man, Wayne Pivac is under all kinds of pressure. And his players need to show him some love and basically put in a performance for him. Because sometimes you see players kind of down the tools. Let's hope that's not the case. Lineups though, first I will start with the Irish one. More changes than the Welsh one, that's for sure. I'll put the lineups in the description so you guys can check them out. But yeah, a bunch of changes. Healy and Porter are still the props. But Kelleher comes in at hooker. Heffernan is still there on the bench as reserve. Byrne, Finlay, Bealham as well. Henderson comes back, which is good news for Ireland fans because that guy is class. Very good liner operator, good round the park. He partners James Ryan, which has to be one of the better locking duos in world rugby, surely. Ireland seem to have no lack of some tall timber. Peter O'Mahony comes up from the bench to start on the blind side, which is an interesting one because the guy is one of the better operators at line-out time defensively in the world. And I know the wind was pretty bad in that last Welsh game, but you got to wonder if he's been put there to help put a bit of extra pressure on that Welsh line-out as well. Although I see there's no CJ Stander, to be honest. My work was flat out. I didn't have time to see if he's injured or what because I see Doris has moved to the 8 jersey in his stead, and Josh van der Flier has come in on the open side. So whether that's just an injury thing or putting a bit of pressure on at line-out time, or maybe a bit of both, we will see. Gibson-Park gets a start at 9, so that means Conor Murray drops to the bench. That's kind of a big call in terms of reputation, but on form, I think a lot of people have been calling that for a wee while. Sexton still remains in the 10 jersey. But I think there's a bit more interesting stuff in the midfield and the outside back. So Henshaw moves to 12 because there's no Bundy Aki this week. Chris Farrell comes in at 13, putting a big bopper there up against Jonathan Davies. So that'll be interesting to see how he goes. Keenan moves to the right wing to make way for James Lowe, who at last makes his Ireland debut, which is going to be fantastic to see. That guy's class, man, and he's done his due diligence over there in Ireland. Like he's paid his dues over in Ireland. So, like, I don't know if there's a player you're kind of happy to see get a cap for a country. It's James Lowe. He seems to love it over there. So I'm very happy for him. He used to, I don't know if he lived locally. He played for the Chiefs, which is not in this part of the country. But I've been to club rugby games when he was injured, and he would just be standing around like supporting his mates, at the club rugby game. So seems to love his rugby over in Ireland and over here, but yeah. Stockdale continues on at 15, and as much pressure's on Wayne Pivac, there's probably an equal amount on Jacob Stockdale. He needs a good game. He needs to have a safe pair of hands, a big old boot, and hopefully make some good tackles, preferably make a few good defensive reads if called upon. But yeah, bit of pressure. Quinn Roux comes in as the lock replacement. Will Connors drops to the bench. Conor Murray, as I mentioned. Billy Burns will get debut as well if he comes on. And Keith Earl is back as well. So, yeah, it's interesting. There's no Conway, which is disappointing. But as I said, if there are injuries, do let me know because I wasn't able to give this the time it deserved. But I wanted to get it out because the clock's ticking to the kickoff of this tournament. For Wales, it's a lot more stable. He's kept faith with that team that went down, against Scotland just the other day. Rhys Carey, Ryan Elias, Thomas Francis is the front row. How's that battle going to be up against Ireland? There's been some question marks about Porter. I've always really rated Porter, but there's been some question marks about him, so I guess it's filling Tyg Furlong's shoes as well, which is going to be a big job. But Rhys Carey is still a relatively young man. Not that experienced, but he's looked the business from what we've seen of him thus far. He's kind of come from nowhere to become a starting loose head prop for Wales. So Will Rowlands and Alan Wynne-Jones are your locking duo. Alan Wynne, talking of useful locking duos, 150th cap for him. Massive congratulations. He'll be hoping it's a better performance for his team than the 149th, to be honest, which was a bit of a bummer. But we'll see. Shane Lewis-Hughes, who was a totally new name for me in that Scotland game, certainly got the work rate everyone was talking about, which is really pleasing to see. And pleasing to see is also Justin Tipuric back at number 7. Also, like Peter O'Mahony, a bit of a useful liner operator and a bit of a jackal. So he'll be looking to make things difficult. Josh van der Flier, I mean, he's got that work rate. He's going to be putting Dan Bigger under all kinds of pressure, but Bigger's an experienced hand. Maybe another guy not in the best vein of form. Falatau is still there at number 8. Gareth Davis and Bigger, like I mentioned. I don't know if Bigger's quite got the Stockdale pressure on him. But Bigger has not been in the best form of his career, that's for sure. So he could use a decent game as well. Owen Watkin and Jonathan Davis are your midfield combo. So a clash between Watkin and Chris Farrell will be an interesting one to see who kind of budges. You know, immovable object, irresistible force kind of thing between those two fellas. Liam Williams is on the right wing, Josh Adams on the left wing, and Leigh Halfpenny. So the only change I think is Tipuric from the starting lineup that I can see. He's a useful man to have back. So, yeah, Halfpenny is a pretty safe pair of hands alongside Williams and Adams, to be fair. So if Ireland's going to play a kicking game, you'd think Wales are going to be pretty secure. Bench... D, Wynne-Jones, Samson Lee is the front row replacements. Jake Ball, Aaron Wainwright continues to ride the pine. Lloyd Williams is the favoured halfback. Callum Sheedy is probably the other guy who's the big call-up. He'll get a debut, so both sides have got a guy in the 22 jumper who will get a debut. People seem to be pretty excited about him. There's a fair bit of talk. Should they go Reece Patchell? Should they go Callum Sheedy? It's still Bigger. But be good to see Sheedy get around. I think they said he's qualified for Ireland, played for England in a non-test, but now he's getting capped for Wales. So hopefully, I think he's in his mid-20s. Be good to see him. Good to see him actually get a proper run. And George North is there on the bench. There's no Reece Zammit. I thought he was cleared of injury a few days ago, but maybe just not selected. Maybe not 100% clear. Not sure. Patchell doesn't make the 23. But yeah, to be fair, Ireland have had the wood over Wales in recent years, barring 2019 where Wales went on to get the Grand Slam. It's been all Ireland. 2018 was 37-27 over in Dublin. The next year, as I mentioned, 25-7 to Wales in Cardiff. And then the next three all in Ireland's favour, 22-17, 19-10 and 24-14. But two of those were Rugby World Cup warm-up matches. You kind of got to keep that in mind. Average score 22-19 in Ireland's favour over those five. So traditionally pretty tight affairs. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see how things go. It's always a bit of a different vibe with no crowd there. It makes a difference. The bookies over here in New Zealand have got Ireland by 10 points, which would go against the average of the recent form, but it would go back to that 2018 form, which was a 10-point victory for Ireland. And similar to 2019, that second game, 9-point victory. And in the Six Nations this year, 10-point victory. So it's not impossible. Rugby Forecast algorithms got things a little bit tighter, saying Ireland by 8. But Wales definitely go into this one as underdogs, but man, could they use a win. I have created a Super Brew pool for the Autumn Nations Cup, so if you guys fancy yourself a pretty smart predictor, jump on. I'll put a link in somewhere, maybe pin a comment with the link to the Super Brew pool. Sign up, that's free, and we'll see who comes on top for the Super Brew predictions. In terms of broadcasters, this one's a bit all over the shop. Nicely, Sky here in New Zealand keeps it pretty simple by owning the rights to most of the rugby, so it is on Sky over here in New Zealand. Remember, it's like an 8 o'clock in the evening game, I think, over in the UK. Was it 8 or 7? I think I said 8 o'clock GMT. So that's early morning over here in New Zealand. In the UK, they've got two broadcasters, Amazon Prime and Channel 4. I forget which one this game's on. I'm assuming Amazon Prime, but correct me if I'm wrong, because The rights to this competition seem to be spread to multiple broadcasters in the same country sometimes. Like Ireland, it's also on Premier Sports and RTE. I'm not sure which one for this game. BN Sports in Australia, Supersport in South Africa, Flow Rugby in the US, ESPN in South America, at least in Argentina, I think. France, I forget, Monde 5 or something like that. Yes, lots of different broadcasters. But either way, happy days to have rugby continuing on. Pivac and Andy Farrell. Who's going to get it right? One's kind of chopped and changed. One's kept things pretty steady. Both sides disappointing in their final game of the Six Nations, but get a chance to make amends over in Dublin this Friday. Is this going to be a nail in Pivac's coffin if they lose? Surely not, man. It's a away game in Ireland. It's a pretty tough one. But it's certainly going to add a bit of fuel to the fire. And Farrell, as I mentioned, could certainly use a feel-good win, and a few players there like Sexton and Stockdale could use a big shift, to be honest. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the lineups. Who's lucky to be in? Who are you excited to see? Who are you disappointed to see out? Any injuries, please do let me know, because I didn't do my full work on this one to check the state of who's in and who's out. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.